to the Inner Core. My name is Paul Rauschenbusch, and I am the Associate Dean of Religious Life and the Chapel at Princeton University. We're so glad you're with us today, and today is an opportunity for you and all of us to learn to deal with stress a little bit more, to get more calm in our lives, to be more aware of what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and perhaps to let some of the stress out of our life and gain a little sense of peace, a sense of being present in this moment. And so I am delighted to welcome here Roberto Schiraldi, who is in the Counseling Center at Princeton University, Owen.Fletc, who is a member of the Princeton Buddhist Student Group, and a co-convener of the Religious Life Council, which is the Interreligious Council at Princeton University. And both Roberto and Owen are leading a group that we do every Thursday at noon at the university, which deals with meditation and stress and how we can bring our spiritual traditions and all of our spiritual and knowledge to bear on the issue of stress in our daily life. So today we're going to be talking about meditation and how to bring these practices into our life to make life better and feel more connected. So welcome. We're so glad that you're here. But what is it about Buddhism? I mean, what is the actual tradition that you bring to that? Is there a school of thought, or is it what is, being more specific? What is it?
I would say that the meditation I've done the most of is Zen Buddhist meditation, which is really just focusing on the breath, which is what Roberto was just talking about. But I've also done some mantra meditations and visualization meditations.
What is a mantra meditation?
A mantra is something that you would just repeat over and over. For example, the syllable that everyone seems to be familiar with in popular culture is Om. You can just say Om over and over. And
do Buddhists use that as well, or is it I've heard that in Hindu terms, it's like the sound of the origins of the universe. Is that something? I guess we're not really like pinpointing one tradition.
It's really hard to draw lines.
Yeah. Well, especially Buddhism and Hinduism comes out of Hinduism. So.
But it's just another meditation technique, and I know that I've heard Om used at least as part of a larger mantra in Buddhism, but it's...
Can you remember what that is?
Sure, actually, it goes, Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Muniya Soha, and you say that either 7 or 21 times, I think, and the only times I've done it, I've been with a group and everybody does it together. And
do we know what that means? Or?
I don't.
Really? Wow. But it feels right.
Sort of an isolated experience I had, but
yeah,
it's very relaxing, and it sort of achieves the same function as focusing on your breath. It just gives you something to not get lost in, but really feel sort of centered in.
Yeah, it's almost it's hard to explain exactly what it is. It's like, it's not getting lost. In fact, it's almost getting found. It's almost being very, very here is the effort. And it's not easy, I should say. I find, it's whenever I try meditating, which we do every Thursday, I have this horrible, I'm really bad at this. And then it's like reinforcing my really badness because I'm thinking about being really, and if you can let that go instead of having all these judgments, all of this other stuff going on, and just get back to the breath.
Yeah, that's the key thing. Letting go of the judgments and getting back to the breath. You just nailed it. I mean, one of the things I was trained in was an approach called mindfulness meditation, and it was developed up in medical school. It's affiliated with the University of Massachusetts, and they've done a lot of research on it in terms of helping people with disease and stress-related diseases and so forth. But the main tenet of mindfulness meditation is checking in on what are all the thoughts that are racing around in our brain, what are all the feelings that are inside, and then what are all the bodily sensations, and just doing a check without criticism, though, without judgment, as you said, just observing. Oh, that with detached interest, they say. Just, oh, that's interesting, I'm thinking this. That's interesting, I'm feeling this. That's interesting, I'm sensing this. And then each time reminding ourselves to return to the breath, always to return to the breath so that we can be fully conscious. It's not like a lot of people think it's about escaping, going to some other place and escaping from the stresses of the world. Quite to the contrary, mindfulness meditation would say, It's about being fully present, fully conscious to our life and to all that's around us, and but realizing that we can be this calm in the center of the storm with our breath.
Right, I agree. Meditation is not meant to be something that you just do for an hour a day or an hour a month or however often you do it. It's supposed to be a practice that you're implementing into your daily life. When we do sitting meditation in Zen Buddhism, we have at least many schools teach that you have your eyes open, and it's sort of as a reminder that, first of all, it's to let light in so you don't fall asleep, but also it's to remind you that you're supposed to be engaging the world as you do it, rather than having your eyes closed and sort of isolating yourself. But you also do walking meditation, you can do mantra meditation again, you can do all sorts of other meditations that can be seen as a step towards maintaining the state of mindfulness at all points during your daily life, which is sort of impossible unless you are a monk for a very long time, I think. But it's sort of.
There's even eating meditation. I mean, I think you did once with me, and I've done this in other places where you take a raisin and you put it in your mouth, and you take like a minute to eat this raisin. Generally, when I eat raisins, like. I watch TV while I'm eating, and this instead, you just take one raisin and you really taste it, and you taste all of the flavor. I mean, it's really and you think, what am I missing? Every day. And I think that's what it is, almost more than anything else for me. It's like, it's fully being aware of the moment, and it seems so rich all of a sudden. If you allow yourself to get in touch with everything that's going on. I think I think part of what we're doing at Princeton every day is running to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. Always our mind on the next thing. And here it's okay, I'm going to just take a moment and realize the incredible richness of this moment. What are some other? We've talked a little bit about Buddhism. How would a Lakota approach to this change it? I mean, what would they bring into something that would have a similar effect, which means being present, being maybe less frenetic, but maybe wouldn't use the same exact language about it or tools?
Well, the main tenet of Lakota teaching is a phrase called Mitakuye Oyasin, all my relations.
Say the word again, or the series of words.
It's two words, Mitakuye Oyasin. Mitakuye-asin. And we say that when we go into sweat lodges, or it's just a way of reminding us of the sacred connection, if you will, of all living things. That when I was brought up Catholic Italian in Brooklyn, so there wasn't a temple around the corner from where I was, and there wasn't a sweat lodge, But what I've learned, which I appreciate so much, is just to be reminded that I'm not alone, even though I feel alone a lot of times. I have felt alone a lot of times. And I think that's one of the beauties of any of this kind of mindfulness meditation or Buddhist meditation. I think it's all similar in that it reminds us of the connection that we have when we really are feeling fully present and not mindless and unaware of everything around us and our place, and our connection. So Lakota we talk a lot about feeling that deep connection to the Earth Mother, for instance, feeling like a mindful walking, feeling the connection with our feet on the Earth Mother and that deep connection to the roots of the Earth, rather than just mindlessly walking through the Earth and stepping all over flowers, or just seeing that deep connection is a major tenet of that. And in sweat lodges, for instance, which is in a dark, covered pit with fire, you get this deep connection to the feeling of the deep connection to the Mother Earth, and it's a peaceful reminding of the connection with even the rocks in the fire pit. May sound a little too much, but that I'm no different than that animal, than that tree, than that rock, that there's a sense of aliveness and energy, which is, in scientific terms, everything's pure energy anyway, so it's not that far-fetched.
Right.
But
I find that strangely reassuring and troubling at the same time, because I think we like to think how special we are, and how, and that doesn't negate that, but in some ways it also, what it does is it brings up the specialness of other things, and makes us feel a part of that. And as I understand it, this is also connected with people who've gone before us. So I don't know if they call it the ancestors or how it would be phrased, but it's really being in touch with just this continuum of life. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's very appealing in a lot of traditions, even in my tradition as a Christian, like the saints who have gone on before me and whoever has come after me, that I'm a part of a communion, mm-hmm. as we could say, that there's a connection. And I think that's a very reassuring, and both, again, it stresses my importance, but also not my extreme it's all about me. I mean, it's really, I'm just part of this long train of things that have happened that I've gained from and that I can give to. There is something relaxing about that. It takes off the pressure maybe a little bit. That it's that we're all like. I find in the Christian tradition, when we do the in Lent, like, you are from dust, and to dust you will return. And there's very comforting about that, which is just that it's not all about me. There's a much bigger thing that I'm a part of, and if I don't accomplish everything I want to in this life, it's okay.
I was just reading Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and in a book I was just reading from him, he talked about, because a lot of my students that I work with and other clients have experienced profound loss in their life. Either a parent or somebody died, or they've been through tremendous trauma in different places, like Virginia Tech or 9/11, or come from other cultures where there may have been terrorist attacks and so on. Anyway, what he said is that when he was a boy, he never thought that his mother would die, but his mother died, and he was taught, though, to go out and see, because his teaching was that it's all pure energy, and that we've always been here and we always will be here. It's just this is the form we're in this mm-hmm. moment. And so he went out and saw his mom in the trees and in the clouds mm-hmm. and when the birds were singing, and that. So he felt that his mother was always going to be with him.
That's very beautiful.
That's a choice that some people aren't comfortable with that, but.
Right. What maybe we can get into a little bit of even just the mechanics of it, in case someone who's watching TV and maybe turn off your TV and meditate. No, I'm saying, like, what when we're talking about breathing meditation, what do we really mean? I mean, what are the instructions that either you have received or given in your group, or when you've led our Thursday meeting? How do you get into this thing? I don't think it makes for good TV necessarily to meditate on TV, but how do you get into it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the instructions that I always give at the Buddhist student group meetings whenever somebody comes who's new and needs instruction are pretty simple. First, I go over the physical posture you should have, because when you're sitting, I will usually sit on a round cushion on the floor, and you want to make sure that you have 3 points of contact with the floor. So usually your knees and both your knees and then your butt. So you'll sit with your legs folded, or you can sit kneeling. But more importantly, I then go over the breathing technique, which is what you're asking about. What this entails is just trying to stop controlling things. But I also just misstated it a little bit, because by trying to stop controlling things, you're going to end up controlling them more. So it's very difficult, but what it comes down to is that you just have to place your awareness on your breath, and every time you notice that your awareness drifts to somewhere else, you have to recognize that it's drifted, let it go, as in this mindfulness meditation Roberto was talking about, and just return your awareness to your breath. And the more you do that, the quicker you are able to return from wandering thoughts to your breath. Because I was going to say when you first start doing this, but even people who've been doing it for a long time still go off on 10-minute daydreams before they realize that their mind is wandering. So
right.
It's definitely a practice you have to do constantly, consistently.
Yeah.
Can I just add something to it?
Yeah.
I think Owen alluded to this before, though. It's not about necessarily, although you can just sit quietly in silence. I mean, you could go hold up in a cave somewhere and do this, you know, to me, it's about how to live more fully, like we were talking about before, in this moment, not an isolation. So, for instance, I work with a lot of athletes at Princeton. Just work. I won't give out the sport, but working with a couple athletes, and haven't been performing well in their sport. And these are highly competitive athletes who have been at the top of their sport, coming here to Princeton, and they were highly recruited and so forth. But they had forgotten about the connection to themselves and to what was really true for them and being themselves. They had just forgotten it got lost in the fear and the pressure of performing at this high level with intercollegiate competition. So we just basically did some real basic deep breathing, helping them I asked them to remember when they used to play the way when they really enjoyed it, what was different for them. And most athletes will say the same thing. You're in a zone, I'm just being myself, doing what feels natural and just enjoying it. Exactly. So I just help them breathe and picture themselves and feel that, and actually feel what it was like. And just did some basic breathing techniques and some what's called guided imagery, where you picture yourself being your true self and what's worked for you in the past, what feels right to you in the past. And it was that simple. And he said he started playing the best tennis of his life, just remembering what it had been like for him. And it's the same for any sport. That's why I have the whole class of.
No, I had very similar experiences.
With
the sports I played, you could, if you're trying too hard in some ways, then that's when you're like, if you're thinking about it too much, or but when you let yourself be in the moment, and then you're just like, it's really amazing what can happen. So
usually with the breath, because when we're not breathing, we're going to be all tight and constricted and not performing.
Yeah. Now, when you lead the meditation, I mean, I think it's okay. I mean, kneeling is fine, but for me, it's really painful, and so I guess you have to kind of. Not everybody can do that. I think if you're if you're in a chair and you're kind of sitting up straight with kind of good posture, maybe hands on knees. One of the things that I think has been interesting with you that I haven't always done in meditation is checking in with various parts of my body, and like really going from head to toe, which is very interesting. And just being aware of any aches and pains. It's just a general check-in, but generally it's always coming back into the breath. You breathe in and you breathe out. I was thinking about this the other day. Owen and the other Buddhist leader on campus, we have this massive, what is it called, activities fair. So there's 1,000 different groups at Princeton who are all like vying for the new students to get involved, and they're like, out there with little balls and, flyers and everything. Come to our group, come to our group. And it's like chaos, loud, people are playing music, So Owen is just, they have a mat on a table, and he is sitting there meditating. Did I ever tell you about this? It was the most amazing image, because amidst all of this chaos is this image of someone who's just sitting there breathing. And people were like, sign me up! I want some of that. It was amazing. It was there's something to this act of just being present, and it's, you really deal with health and people's mental and spiritual and health, and you can see a correlation here, can't you?
For sure. I just was dealing with someone today who lost some parents and lost a relationship, and like most of us, this person was never taught ways to comfort himself. I sure wasn't taught ways to comfort myself. I wasn't taught to be compassionate towards myself. I was taught to be really hard and push through, and doesn't matter what you're feeling, just tough it out, be a man. And so just doing a simple thing, again, I come back to Thich Nhat Hanh. He talks about when you're feeling some pain or stress or anxiety, put your hands over your heart and breathe in and say, I care for your pain, or I care for your suffering. Whatever words works, but it's a foreign concept for most of us to be that compassionate to ourselves. And I think when we've gone through some loss, that's what we need more than anything, is some compassion for ourselves, because we may not always get it from somebody else.
It's really great that we can really do this at any time too. When I was doing the meditation in the gymnasium at the activities fair, it was really hard to stay focused or anything, of course, but no matter where you are, you can just at least take a minute. I took an hour and a half, but you can take a minute and just really be aware of what it feels like to breathe, and it's centering. Even if you take 2 breaths and just try to let the sensations of breathing fill your mind and fill your awareness, then it really changes your outlook for the rest of the day.
Right. I think that it's also again, it's, I think especially if we undergo some sort of trauma or pain, whether like deep radical trauma or even just minor trauma, spending time breathing can allow ourselves to actually experience it and not cover it over with activity.
Yeah.
And because that would maybe allow a type of healing. So I think that there's a value to just taking the time out. I mean, I've found that every time we do our meditation on Thursday, that I'm always running to make, something happen before I get there. Oh my God, the meditation, and then I get there, and by the end of it, I'm like, oh, that is exactly what I needed right now, and I didn't even remember that I needed it. So this is your opportunity if you're sitting at home and you could take off, to turn off the TV and just, I find that even 10 minutes to start with, or even 5 minutes to start with, is like a completely legitimate time well spent, just breathing, either with eyes open. I think it's harder with eyes open, so maybe that's something you lead up to, or
Sure.
If you have a white wall. I think that's, when we did Zen meditation, it's easier if you're just facing a wall, but just to take time and just breathe. For me, again, as a Christian, the story about basically that God breathed breath into the human race, and so every breath is actually a reminder of this initial creative act, and that continues with every breath. And for me, that's part of the connection that makes me feel like more present. And so breathing in, so I've sometimes used the mantra like just breathing in the breath of God, and breathing out the breath of God, and it's like that helps me focus within my own tradition. So, but there's all sorts of things you could just say, just breathe in and breathe out, and it's a real opportunity. So we are running out of time. Do you have any last words of wisdom for those folks listening or watching? Or
I just encourage people to breathe, to practice being in touch with their breath.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing in, I relax. Breathing out, I release.
Mm-hmm.
Could be one thing they could say, but at the beginning.
What's another? I mean, just breathing in, I relax. Breathing out, I release. Releasing tension, releasing stress, releasing whatever someone needs to. I release pain, even, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Another thing is we can say to ourselves, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may all living, we can wish it to the world too. We can send out the energy to the world. May all living things be happy and at peace, or whoever is needing our wishes. So that way it goes out from us to the world.
Mm-hmm. Another way of connecting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think I would just say that in my experience, you really have to want to do this. So I would definitely encourage people to be aware of the breath and try to be mindful, but remember too that it's very difficult for us to let go of negative feelings we're having. Sometimes we're kind of like holding on to misery or anger or whatever it is, and you really have to be prepared to sort of be courageous and just return to your breath instead of letting feelings like that overcome you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not something I'm good at either, but it's a good reminder, I think.
Right. But it is an opportunity to deal with those in perhaps a more constructive way.
Hopefully.
Than
letting the feelings spiral.
Yeah.
I think we all know what it's like, actually.
Yeah, we do.
Just watching yourself retaliate against somebody because you're angry, and then stopping and wondering, like, why did I do that? And if you stop and be aware of your breath, then I think it reduces the likelihood that you're going to act on spiraling feelings like that.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Roberto and Owen, for being here today. And thank you for joining us today at the Inner Core. I hope you've gotten something out of this on a way to increase calm, equanimity, and connection to the world around you. And remember, you can do it at any time, in any place. So just enjoy the opportunity to get in touch with your breath. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Paul Rauschenbusch, Associate Dean of Religious Life at Princeton University. Until the next time, breathe.